And then, voila. You should see me now. And Sophie, the studio dog. This is Sophie, the studio dog here. She may snore at any given point during today's presentation. That's just what she does. She's a studio dog. So, as promised, next up on our agenda here is we're going to play with Photoshop some and make something cool, right? And it's pretty easy to do. Don't get scared because it's Photoshop. I understand. I do. Photoshop's scary. There's a lot of buttons going on. There's a lot of panels. There's layers and there's crazy words and it's hard. It's overwhelming. Don't worry. I'm going to show you exactly what to do and it's going to work. That's what's cool, because the first time you make something in Photoshop and it works, you get hooked. You get the Photoshop bug. The photo, I don't know. We gotta somebody come up with something cool. The Photoshop bug. Let's start, shall we? So in that folder of stuff, you should have 2 JPEG images. Let me find this folder here. Let me share my desktop with you. Okay, let's get rid of Lightroom for now. We don't need it anymore. This is me over in the corner. You don't need to pay attention to that. Here's my Explorer, my Windows Explorer, and this is the Dropbox folder in the show notes. So let's start with this image here. It's an image of a girl jumping. I have my computer set to open images like this in Photoshop. If you don't, I'm going to show you how to open it. So open up Photoshop if you have it on your computer. It'll take a minute. I'll give you a minute there. You notice I just double clicked on the file and it was already associated with Photoshop because I do a lot of that kind of work. If you don't and you open Photoshop, you can just go here to File and Open, and then you can browse to the location of that image in your Dropbox or wherever it is that you saved the image to, and load it that way. So I'll go through that exercise for people that may be just opening up Photoshop. So I'm going to close this image and you'll see I have Photoshop here with stuff in my library. I'm going to go to File, Open, and then it brings up an Open dialog box. And then we're going to find my Dropbox, BVAA, today's date. That's where I've saved these files. Where you save them will be different, so make sure that you point this at the location on your disk where you save them. And we're going to open up BVAA 0425 photo number 4. So grab that one, photo 4. That's our jumping girl. This photo came from Pexels. It's a free stock photo site. So I went and downloaded it from there and just threw it on Dropbox for you guys to grab. So now you should have, let's close some of this stuff. We don't need all this stuff open. Now you should have Photoshop open with your image open and a base set of tools. Now, don't worry if your Photoshop doesn't look exactly like my Photoshop. That's okay. We're going to move all this stuff around. And as you use Photoshop more and more, we'll move this stuff around to suit your particular workflow and the way you like things to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an effect here where she kind of explodes. I'll see if I can show you. Well, in the Facebook post that Lisa posted, she will have shown you an example of this effect. I don't have one handy on this computer, so you're just going to have to trust me on this. She's jumping, and we're going to make it look like she's kind of breaking apart as she jumps and disintegrating into the air. It's going to be very, very cool, and it's not that hard to do. But I'm going to go really slow, and hopefully you can follow along. By now, I hope you've got this image loaded in Photoshop. And let's take a look at what's going on. I'm going to hide that. We don't need to see that. And then let's make Photoshop bigger. And then I'm going to get my pen here because I like to use this touch-sensitive tablet when I'm working in Photoshop. It makes the work easier, and it enables me to do things that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do with a mouse. So that's very handy. So you'll see here, I've got a bunch of panels. The one that we're interested in to start is the layers panel. So I think by default that's in the bottom right of Photoshop, but if not, then what we want to do is come up here to window. And then this window option has all these different things over here are all contained in window, and the ones with the check boxes are the ones that are being shown currently, right? So we want to see the layers. So if you don't see it, just click on layers, and layers will come up. I just unchecked it, so I'm going to check it again. Layers. Boom. So here's my layers. Right, you'll see that I've only got one layer. It's a background layer. And the first thing I want to do to this photo is make a copy of that layer. So I want to make sure that we can always go back to the original photo if we need to. Now, Photoshop has a shortcut for making a copy of a layer, and that's to just take the layer here and just drag it to this little guy here. So I let go, but you can see this little plus. It's a plus inside of a square. That's the new layer. If you just hit that button, it'll make a blank new layer. But if you drag an existing layer onto it, it'll make a copy, which is very cool. Another way to do this, if that's not working out for you, I'm going to do the same thing and drag it to the delete. If I just right click on this layer, which is not working with my pen for some reason, I can go to duplicate layer, which does the same thing, but much faster and easier and more fun to do the draggy droppy thing. That's more fun. So what we want to do essentially is we want to take a copy of this girl and we want to smudge her or stretch her, and all the colors and the detail in her. We want to stretch all that out, and then we want to hide it with a brush that looks like spatter. So I probably should have done it beforehand so you could see what we were going to do, but you're just going to have to trust me. So the first step here is to make a copy of your layer. Make sure you've got a copy of your layer. I'm going to double click on that and rename it to stretch. Cool. Now, what my goal is to take her and just kind of morph her and stretch her out, like just squeeze her. So I'm going to use the tool in Photoshop called Liquify. And I never remember where the Liquify tool is, to be honest. So what I do is I come up to the help here. And, well, I'm on Windows right now, so it's going to make a liar out of me. On a Mac, this allows you to just type in what you're looking for, and it'll show it to you. But on Windows, I guess it doesn't do that. So we're going to have to find the Liquify tool. Maybe it's in Edit, probably. Liquify tool is hidden somewhere. Liquify tool is where? We're going to find the Liquify tool somewhere. Somewhere it is going to be. There it is. It's in filters. So in filters, that makes good sense. Alternatively, if you use Liquify a lot, it's Shift Control X, it would seem. So let's hit the Liquify tool. Filter, Liquify. Right. And it brings up this crazy looking dialog box with a example of your photo. Right? And you have a brush, right? And as I brush on this photo, you'll see that she just gets warped. Look at that. It's funky. And I'll use my bracket keys on my keyboard. My right bracket key makes my brush bigger. And I can just do crazy stuff. And we can make her swirl or turn her into really anything. This is the tool you would use if you were doing like portrait retouching and you were trying to maybe push in somebody's arm or something like that, if you were trying to be a little more subtle with it. Sorry, I'm just zooming around here, trying to get my bearings. Not used to using Windows that much. So yeah, this is the same tool you would use to like tuck somebody's arm in a little like this. You know, if you were trying to pull in a double chin a little bit, you could use this tool and fix it up. I mean, you have to be somewhat ethical about this, right? Because you can really morph people's bodies and do things that are, I don't know, not right, I guess. So think about what you're doing before you do it. Is all. Um, we don't want to make people appear like something they're not. But also, that being said, everybody takes a bad picture once in a while, and if you can help somebody, out, that's different. There's a line there. Use your judgment, I guess. Whatever. So, getting back to the picture at hand, we're in the liquefy tool. I'm going to just cancel and go through this again in case anybody missed me. So first, we've taken this picture, we loaded it from Dropbox into Photoshop. Then we went to our layers panel, and we made a copy of the background layer, which is just making a copy of the image on top of itself. Right? That way, we always have a safe copy if we want to go back to it. Then we renamed the copy to Stretch. And now we're going up to the filter menu and then liquefy. So the liquefy filter helps you just morph an image around. Now I'm going to set my brush size using my bracket keys here to something fairly large, like the size of around her head or something like that. That's pretty good. And I'm just going to start feathering out from her. And I'm going to just do this a little bit at a time, stretching her out. And the goal is I kind of want her colors and textures to be stretched all the way to the edge of the screen. So I'm doing it a little bit at a time because just big strokes look worse, I think. And I'm trying to stretch her without breaking her. Like, imagine that we're playing with silly putty right now and we're stretching it thin. At some point, we will stretch it too far. And if we do that, it'll break in weird ways, like silly putty would. So I know this looks weird and pointless, but it's not. It's going to be cool. And maybe you can start to see how, start to imagine how this could be useful. We're just stretching a little bit at a time, getting groovy with it. I want to make sure that all the colors that are in her are represented. All right. Cool. So now we have that. Now I'm going to hit OK to just apply that liquefy change to that layer. So we have our crazy stretched out girl. And if I hide that layer, we have our original background image. So cool. Got it? I'll just give you a moment to catch up. We loaded our image. We made a copy of it by dragging the layer here to the new layer option. That makes a copy. Then we renamed it to Stretch. We went up to the filter menu and selected Liquefy. And then we used the tools in Liquefy, the default tools, to just push her body around until it looked like this and went off the screen. Okay? Hopefully everybody is with me so far. Now, I'm going to create a mask. Don't worry about the words, just see what I do. I'm going to click this button that looks like the Japanese flag. This is the mask button. So if I click this button down here, it will add what's called a white mask. You see this little white box next to it. Now, a mask in Photoshop is used to reveal or conceal the layer below it. Right now, we have this mask completely white. That means it's going to reveal everything below it. If we set this to black, though, it will conceal everything except what we paint white on. So that's what we want to do. We want to actually fill this with black. And just to show you that it doesn't matter, to fill it, I'm going to use my brush tool. Right? I'm hitting B on my keyboard, and this is just a paintbrush. And you'll see that my color here over in the little color panel is set to black. So depending on how you have don't worry if your Photoshop isn't set up just like mine. you just see over here that you get two colors. The one on top is your foreground color, and you can see that mine is set to black, and I'm on the brush tool. This is the brush tool. You can see it looks like a paintbrush. I like to use the keyboard shortcuts to get to these tools because I find most of the time finding all these tools and this is madness. But I can remember that B is for brush, so I use B to get to the brush tool, and I'm on black, the color. So I'm going to make my brush fairly big. You use the bracket keys left and right to change the size of your brush. So I'm going to make a big brush, and I'm going to paint on it. See what happens? We're painting that stretched out layer away. Why would we want to do that, you might ask? When we went through the trouble of making it. And we want to do that. Sorry, my computer's getting slow on me here. We want to do that because we only want to see little particles of that stretched out image, right? We're trying to think about what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this girl blast apart. So to do that, we need to show little particles behind her. And that's what we're using that the stretched out image for. We're going to use that image to make those particles. Now, we have two layers. We have a layer that has our girl all stretched out and weird, but we're hiding that with this black mask so you can't see, right? Underneath that, we have just our girl jumping. Now, I'm going to make another copy of our girl jumping, our background layer, by grabbing the background layer and then dragging that to the new layer box right here. Right? So when I do that, it makes another background copy. Let's click on that. I'm going to double click on my background copy, and I'm going to rename this girl. Right? I'm trying to name the layers because sometimes you make lots and lots of layers over time, and then it's hard to figure out which was which and what's going on. You can redo work and undo work. It can get bad, so try to stay organized up front. If you're just learning Photoshop, rename your layers when you make them. It's easy to do. So right now we have our background, which is really just a safety layer for us. This is our original. We have our girl, and then we have our stretched out image, but our stretched out image has this black mask over it, so it's covering that whole image, so we're not even seeing it at all. Right? That's where we're at. What we want to do now is select our girl away from our background. Right? So to do that, I'm going to use this new tool in Photoshop called the Select Subject tool. So I'm going to hit W on my keyboard. I'm hitting W because it brings up a selection tool, the quick selection wand. And when you bring up, if you just click on this tool, it enables what we want up here in the buttons, in the contextual buttons up here. So I'm hitting W to go to this magic wand that helps us select things. And that brings me these buttons, Select Subject and Select and Mask. The Select Subject button is new in Photoshop 2020, and it uses Adobe's artificial intelligence to try and make an informed decision about what the subject of the photo is. So let's click that. And look at the marching ants. Look, it did a pretty good job of selecting our girl here from the background. So it knows about her. It's not great around the hair, right? You can't expect miracles, but it selected her pretty well. It saved us a lot of time is what it did. So I'm just taking a quick look at this selection. It's pretty good, right? We lost a bit of our knee here. So I'm going to hit W to go to my wand, and I'm just going to paint that bit of her knee in with a really small brush because I don't want it to take too much, just about that much. Cool. And then I'm going to hold the Alt key on Windows, and you can't really see it because my brush is super small. Let me make the brush bigger. When I hold the Alt key, you'll see the little plus in the middle of my brush here turns into a minus. So that deletes the selection instead of adding to the selection. If I hold the Alt key, it deletes from the selection. So I don't want this little piece of the mountain to be selected. So I'm going to hold the Alt key and click in there, and it kind of tells Photoshop, hey, take another look at this area. We want to deselect it. And I'm going to do that again here between her shoe and her leg. I'm going to hold the Alt key to delete this little piece of the selection. The Alt key, not the Windows key, folks. And then I'm going to paint in the little bits that I see missing around here. Right. It's a pretty good selection, but it's not taking account of her hair, right? Her hair is going to look really badly cut out if we just do it like this. So Photoshop gives us some refinement tools. Hopefully at this point you have your girl here, right? And she's selected with these marching ants all around her. If you don't, what you can do is make sure that you're on your girl layer. Right? Make sure you're on the right layer, and then hit the W key to bring the quick selection wand up. And then you'll see these two buttons up here. And if you hit select subject, Adobe will use their AI to kind of figure out what your subject is and select it. That's where we're at. Now, it doesn't do a perfect job. It does a really good job, but it doesn't do a perfect job. But it gives us the tools to refine that. Right next to the select subject button, there's the select and mask button. So I'm going to hit that button. And that lets us really take care of this weird portion of our selection. This portion in her hair where there's white there and stuff. Like, it just looks choppy and bad, right? That's exactly what this tool is made for. So we're in the select and mask tool, and it's showing us our what's selected. What's not selected is all in red right now. And there's a bunch of different view modes over here. If you click, you have onion skin and marching ants, or overlay is what we're on because it's really easy to see. But we could also see what this looks like on black or on white, or, you know, whatever. These are only 50% opaque, so that's why you can see behind it. But for our purposes, stay on the red one. We're going to use the red overlay view mode so you can really clearly see all this white in her hair. And if we look over here, where all the tool bars are, the default one is this refine edge brush. It's the second one. That's the one we want to use. And I'm going to make my brush kind of biggish. And I'm just going to use this refine edge brush and paint in her hair. And this is helping Photoshop to re-examine those areas. And it can kind of tell what's hair and what's background. It's not perfect, and you can spend a lot of time getting it perfect. There's a lot of different methods for doing this, but for what we're doing, it doesn't have to be perfect. We just don't want it to be horrible. I mean, it could be argued that this is horrible, but we're not going to make that argument. We're going to go with it. Because that's how we roll. Takes a little while. I'm just clicking here and there, trying to clean it up. Her hair is going crazy, and the sun is blowing out a lot of the details in it. So that's what's making it difficult to really clean up all this flowy hair. But we do have the tools to do it. It just takes a little while. There's pretty much nothing that can't be done. All right. So it's not perfect, but that's how I'm going to select her hair. And then I'm going to maybe brush back in just her arm here, because that was really her. All right, back to my refine edge brush. My computer just got slow on me. We're waiting for the brush to change, and then we're just going to paint that little spot away. Now I see two more spots I want to address. It's just right here on her knee. So I'm going to make my brush small, like that little spot, and just paint over here and see if it is smart enough to bring back her knee. And it's doing a pretty good job. And then this little spot right here in the crux of her, what do you call that? Knee? It's not working great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this brush tool, and I'm just going to paint it myself. All right. I have the pencil, so I'm able to get very, very precise when I do these sorts of adjustments. It's a lot harder to do with a mouse. Right. So I'm just kind of feathering in her knee there, so that looks natural. And then we'll come back over here. And I'm gonna hold the Alt key. Whoop. The Alt key, not the Windows key. And I'm gonna make my brush small. Sorry, the computer's not responding super fast. Hold my Alt key, and then I'm just gonna paint this area in between her knee. Oh, right. We don't want that in our selection of her because it's not part of her. Looks weird. We don't like that. All right, groovy. Again, it doesn't have to be super perfect, but close enough for rock and roll. Let my computer catch up with us here. All right. And we should be zooming out any minute now. Any minute now. Zooming out is what we said. We said we're zooming out. There we go. Zooming out. Zooming out some more. Here we go. All right, we're zoomed out. So now we can see our selection of the girl. It's not great, but it's pretty good. It's not even pretty good. It's not great, so I'm going to fix these because I just can't put my name on this. Until I fix these things. I would be embarrassed by it if I looked at it next year. So just clean it up a little bit more. And now we can see her hair pretty well. So I'm going to output our girl. See, there's a bunch of stuff over here. Don't worry about any of this except for the output to section. I want to output this selection to a new layer with a layer mask. Right? So ignore all this stuff in the properties here over to the right, except output to. In output to, we want to select a new layer with a layer mask. Don't select new document with a layer mask. That'll mess you up. Select new layer with a layer mask. Cool? Groovy? When this is all groovy, then we hit OK. Cool. It looks like nothing changed because we have all these layers on. So see all these eyes next to all these layers? I'm just going to go ahead and turn them off. All except for the one we're on. See what we did? We just cut our girl out completely from our background, which is fantastic. Now, let's take a look. Let's take a copy of this. I'm going to grab this whole layer, the girl copy, to the new layer button. That's going to make girl copy 2. Now you can see our mask here. We have a mask, and the white bit is the bit you can see. That's the girl. And the black bit is the bit you can't see. That's the background. So what I want to do is invert this mask. I want to turn all the black parts white, and I want all the black parts to turn black. So I'm going to hit Command. I think it's Command Shift I for invert. Let me just Control Shift I. Control I. No. Yeah, it's Control I, but make sure that you have the mask selected, not the layer. See, there's 2. On my copy, I'm going to select this little black and white mask, and I'm going to hit Control on a PC or Command on a Mac and I, and it inverts that. So now what we've got is the background without the girl. So we've got the girl copy 2. We're going to call this BG. And then we've got our girl. And now we've got a stretch. So we've got our stretch with the mask. We've got our background with the girl cut out of it. And then we've got our girl all in different layers. Let's just work a little bit more on this background because I want to show you something cool. Now we've cut out this girl, but we want to put the background back right behind her where she was. And Photoshop has made that pretty easy. So I'm going to switch to the lasso tool. The lasso tool is just a tool that lets you select things by drawing around them. So I'm going to hit L on my keyboard to select the lasso tool. And now I'm just going to kind of draw around her. Right, make sure you're on the correct layer. I'm on the layer that we're going to make our new background That's the point of this. And I'm just selecting around where she is not anymore. Right? So we've got our selection of our girl here. Right? And now she's surrounded by those marching ants. Now if I hit Shift and Delete, by default now Photoshop tries to fill the area that we've selected, and it has this option here. It's the default option called Content Aware. And what that does is it looks at your picture, it analyzes all the information outside your selection, and it tries to come up with, it tries to just fill it. It tries to fill it with what would look natural in your image. So let's give it a shot. Let's just see what it does. We're saying, hey, Photoshop, we got this blank spot. I want you to make it not blank anymore. And then it's going to try and just figure out from what's around it how to fill that space. So let's see how it does. Didn't do anything. Didn't do anything. Why didn't it do anything? That's not good. Let's try this. I wonder if that's because I have a mask on it. So let's try this. On my background layer, you should still be where I'm at, I hope. I'm going to right click on this layer. And then, let's see. Flatten image. No. We want to, I want to rasterize it. I'm going to hit Command or Control D to get rid of all those marching ants. And then I'm going to click on my layer here. And now I'm going to right click here. And I'm going to, it won't let me rasterize this. Why not? I don't know why. So I'm going to go up to Layer. I'm going to go up to Image and then Apply Image. Let's see what this does for us. Image, Apply Image. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select our girl. And hit Shift Delete, Content Aware Fill. And it does nothing. Awesome. All right. Well, I lied. I guess this isn't gonna work. Let's see what happens if I... Whatever. We don't need it. We'll just skip that part. So we'll put our girl copy back. I'm going to hit Control D to get rid of that selection. See, it's messed up a little bit of the background behind us here. Let's hide this. We've got our girl. We've got our stretchy layer. We've got our background girl. All is groovy. I do want to remove this girl from the background though, so I'm not sure why I'm having trouble. I'm going to try it on this layer. This is our original girl layer. Well, it's the first copy of our girl layer. I'm just going to select our girl. With the lasso tool, and hit Shift Delete, Content Aware Fill. Okay. It tries to fill for me. It did a much better job this time. It didn't do a perfect job. It filled the white areas pretty well. It did a messed up job here. It started putting the texture of the road into the mountains, which is not something that we want. That looks weird. So I'm going to hit Command Z here to go back. And instead of hitting Shift Delete to go to Content Aware Fill, we're going to go up to Edit, the Edit menu, and then Content Aware Fill. Right. So now what we have is our image with this weird overlay over it. And this is telling Photoshop the areas in green are the areas of the photo that I want you to use to try and fill the selected area with. You can see that there's some spots of green on the road here. That's why we're getting road texture in the mountain where her leg used to be. We don't want that. We want only like mountain texture or sky texture. That'd be fine. So all I'm going to do is just paint over this area of the road. And this is telling Photoshop, hey, don't use this. Don't use the road to fill in this area because it looks dumb. And Photoshop will reassess and try and fill the area without the road in it. Theoretically. There it goes. Still not so great. But it's better, I think. Let's see what else can we... How else can we refine this? Let's paint out all this white. That's probably not helpful. We don't want to replace all that white. Let's see if this works for us. Nah, it's not really helpful. So I'm going to go back one. This one was good enough. This was fine. And I'm going to hit apply. We're going to wait for Photoshop to catch up. And let's hit OK. Now I'm going to hit Command D to get rid of our selection. And it doesn't look great, but that's fine. It doesn't have to look great. I'm just going to, let's just clean up this bit where it's gray. Actually, let's get this corner here too, because that looks weird. And we'll just try one more time. I'm going to Shift Delete and see what Photoshop magically fills that with. If it looks better than that weird gray spot. Not much. What we could do, and what I'm going to do, is instead of trying to fill it, I'm just going to paint over it. So I'm going to hit S on my keyboard. S is for the clone stamp tool. And I'm going to take this road here. I'm going to take a sample of it. I'm going to take a sample of it by holding my Alt key. You see when I hold the Alt key, my brush here turns into a little like target. And I'm going to sample this little area of road. And I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to start painting that over. Sample it. And it's not working. Photoshop's not working. Photoshop's messing with me. What's your problem, man? I'm going to change this to all layers and see if that's my problem. Alright. So, I'm going to hit Alt, select this area. And now I'm painting the road back in here. Alright. So I'm selecting areas from where it started to blur out the road. Like here. And this looks bad, but let's see what else we can do with it. Painting the road over that doesn't look good. Let's see if we sample from here. And then we just start painting the mountains and the trees back. Get what this is doing? See how this is cool? So if you see, when I put my pen down, you can see this little plus over towards the left-hand side. Photoshop is taking that area, and I'm actually painting over the road with it. And filling in the area where the girl used to be. What? This is the future. All right. So that's good. That's good enough for our purposes, right? So we got rid of the girl. She is currently on this layer turned off. So now we have a background and we have our girl. We separated our girl entirely from the background and filled her in. And then on top of that, you may have forgot, it was a while ago, we made this other layer of her with a mask on it that is all stretched out and crazy looking, right? So I just hit Shift and clicked on the mask to disable it so you could see. We're hiding this effect by having a black mask on top of it. So if I turn that back on, it hides the effect. All right, now we get to the fun part, now that we figured all that out. I'm going to delete this noisy layer because we didn't need it. I'm going to do some cleanup. Let's name our stuff appropriately. So let's turn off these layers. This first layer is, let's call this original. Then we have girl copy 2. Did I mess on them? I'm gonna go back a couple. I think I deleted the wrong one. Where's that background we just made? Oh no. Here's our original background. Here's our girl. All right. Sorry, I went too far. I'm just gonna redo this change because I messed it up. So, do. I don't know why this is messed up in the way that it is. It's very strange, but it is what it is, and we're gonna move on, and I'm just gonna fix it. So I'm gonna redo this change here. Paint this area over here. Right, just blending it in, making this all look like it was together. And now it looks like these two images together are creating that effect. Huh. I masked out the... I don't know what I did there, but whatever. I'm going to take these two layers, and I'm just going to make them one. Merge layers. And then, all right, this is where I wanted to be. So now we have our solid background. I'm just going to call this working background. And then we have our girl. So I'm just going to call her a girl. And then we have this madness that I'm going to delete. And then we have our stretch layer that has a mask on it. So here's what we want to do. We want to have our background in the back. We want to have our stretch layer on top of that. So I'm just going to drag the stretch layer above working background and below the girl. So now the girl is on top. Right? So this is how we want to be set up. And now we get to play. So the fun part is we're going to start painting our effect on now, because we've got our girl and we've got our stretched out girl behind her that's hidden. And now we've got the background on itself. Let's take a look at some of these brushes over here. I'm going to hit B for the brush tool, and that brings me to the brush tool. And then I have all my brushes set up over here on the right. If you don't have your brushes here in Photoshop, that's okay. We'll just go to Window like we did before and select Brushes. Right, I had it turned on, so I just turned it off and turned it back on. Here's my brushes. Boom. And they're separated by default. You get a whole bunch of brushes that just come with Photoshop. And they're separated by general brushes, dry media, wet media. And what we want for this special effect is the special effect brush. So here we are, and we have these Kyle's spatter brushes. I'm going to pick the second one here. Maybe not. That doesn't look that cool. I'm going to pick this first one, and I'm going to make a new layer on top here. So I'm going to click on girl, and then I'm going to click this new layer button. I'm not going to drag the girl to a new layer to make a copy. I just want to make a brand new layer on top. So I'm just going to click the new layer button. It makes a layer 1. And then I'm going to select black here. I just want to test the brush and see what it looks like. And then I'm going to make this brush bigger. See what it looks like. It's a bunch of like dots. And as I move it, it kind of paints. It paints splatter, a random pattern. This is not the kind of random pattern I want, though. That's horrific. What if we make it a lot smaller? Right, that's more like what we're looking for. It's just a spatter brush. And notice every time I lay it down, it turns and randomizes itself to make it look a little more natural. So this is a cool brush. We can use this. Just hitting Control Z to get rid of all those marks that I just made. Actually, we don't even do that. I'm just going to delete this layer. This was a temporary layer for me to show. Ooh. Oh, I found out what's happening. There's a little button on my pen that I keep hitting, and it undoes things when I'm not expecting it to. So I'm just going to drag this temporary layer to the trash. We don't need that. Okay, so here's our girl. What do we want to do? We want to Look at how this is made. I'm going to hide all the layers except for our girl, so she's transparent. What we have is the whole picture. You can see in the thumbnail, this is our whole picture. And then what's hidden is in black. So what we want to do is we want to hide particles of our girl here. We want to make it look like she's disintegrating into nothing, right? So I've got my spatter brush here, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And let's grab the color black, because when we're working on layers and masks, the color black is what we use to hide things. Black conceals what's underneath it. So let's choose our layer of the girl and make sure that the little white box around the thumbnail here, make sure that's on your mask. So you want it to be on the black and white image here, not the other one. So when we paint, we're painting on this mask, not on the image below it. And we want to paint black because when we paint black, it's going to hide the bits that are currently white. The bits that are white are just her. So I'll just show you, right? Let's start painting. I'm just going to click around. And you see she's I'm going to make my brush smaller because that's kind of big. You can see she's starting to break apart and disintegrate, right? And you can do as much or as little as you want. All this is really doing is using a funky paint spatter brush that I got out of my brushes here in special effects. It's we're using the first one, Kyle's spatter brush, and I'm just painting with the color black on this mask here, and she's exploding. So I'm gonna get rid of her entire arm. I'm just gonna draw her arm away. We don't even need her arm. Goodbye. And then we're gonna keep spattering and spattering until it looks like she's fairly disintegrated. That's cool, right? Let's do some to her foot too, because that would be disintegrating too, I suppose. Wouldn't just be top of her. That wouldn't make sense. And I'm gonna adjust the size of my brush a little just for randomness, right? Just for the sake of it. And now what we have is a girl that's blown apart. So I'm going to hold the shift key on my keyboard and click on this mask just to hide it so you can see what's underneath it. Notice this is the only layer we have. This is the only layer we have visible right now. See, I have all the other layers turned off. So we're looking at just this layer of the girl. All we have is the picture. It's a copy of the image. And then we have a mask on top of it. And that mask is just a black and white image. And I'm painting black where I don't want to show things. And I'm painting white where I do want to show things. That's all. And that our selection is so precise in Photoshop that we were able to make this mask. We were able to paint so precisely around like this hat and stuff that it looks real, or it can look real if you take your time with it. Cool. All right. So now we have our girl busting apart. Awesome. Let's turn on our stretch layer and our background layer. Now, remember our stretch layer, we put a mask on and we filled that mask with black. So we're not seeing anything from that stretch, but we want to. So if you remember, when we're working with layers and masks, when you paint with black, it conceals things. And when you paint with white, it reveals the things. Right? So right now we have this layer. It's the same as all the other layers. It's just a copy of this picture of the girl. And we have it, it's not just a copy of the picture of the girl. It's a copy of the picture of the girl that we stretched out so she's all crazy. But it started out as a copy of the picture of the girl. And now there is a mask on top of it that's hiding that. That's all. So we're going to take our spatter brush, change our color to white because this is something that we want to reveal. And now I'm going to start painting white. Oh, sorry. Let me undo those. I didn't take my own advice. See, make sure when we start painting on the mask that we have the mask selected. See how the little white border is around the image thumbnail? We don't want that. We want to work on our mask. So make sure that the mask is selected. And now we're painting white. Make sure we select the color white on this black mask. So all the areas that we paint now are going to be shown. Let's make our brush a little smaller with the bracket key, and I'm going to start painting out this way. So now what we're doing is we're revealing in a spattery kind of way that layer that we stretched out in the very beginning of this. We're just showing little bits of it, and it looks natural because it really is her. Like, it is the image that we stretched out. So these are the exact colors that were in her, and we have it busting apart. And we can change this brush if this isn't the greatest brush, I guess, for it, but this is a better brush. So we'll mix some of this one in, and you can play with all the different brushes and effects and do this as much or as little or as far out as you want. Because remember, we gave ourselves a lot of room there when we stretched her out, so we could reveal as much or as little. And if we want to, if we went too far, all we have to do is paint black back over this, right? We just have to conceal it again. So I'm going to hit my brush tool, and I'll switch to just a normal brush. So in my general brushes, I'll grab this, just a hard round brush, and we'll paint black over here. You see it just deletes the bits on. Remember, we're only working on that one layer of the stretchy girl that we worked on. So this is deleting all the work we just did by painting over it with black. It's pretty cool, and it's pretty powerful. And this isn't perfect. Like, I don't like the way her foot is. Maybe we could come back to the girl. And now that we decided that we like this other brush better, I'm going to go to my brushes here. These are the standard ones that come with Photoshop, so I didn't install anything weird here. We're going to grab this third one this time. And now we want to conceal. I want to hide this foot more, so let's pick black. And I'm going to start drawing over this foot. Let's just get rid of that whole shoe. And then break into her leg a little bit. And then down here too, like, I'm not even painting, I'm just like clicking a lot, because every time I touch and move this brush, it randomizes its pattern, which is very cool for an effect like this. That's exactly what you want it to do. All right, and now I'm going to go back to my stretch girl. Remember, we painted black all over that mask, and let's use this brush again, and let's change our color to white, and then paint our spatter back in. Blam! It's pretty dope. Blam! And that's how you do the dispersion effect in Photoshop. This would also work. Right now I just painted hard, but let me do that. This technique would also work in any other, well, not any other. You couldn't do this in Lightroom, but you could do this in Affinity Photo, or you could do this in Procreate, probably. I haven't tried it, but I can't imagine you couldn't. Procreate supports masks and layers. Any graphics program that supports masks and layers, you can do this effect. So now we've gone through it once. We've got about a half hour left. I'm going to just pop on and check the chat and see if anybody's said anything, and maybe take some questions for a half hour or so. So if you have questions about how this works, or how to do a thing that you're trying to do, maybe I can help you out. Let's see. You let me know, and we'll have Crystal's The Collective Responsive come up in the background. Going to the questions. Puppy cam. Lisa likes the puppy cam. Mary's late, but she's going to rewatch. It looks cool. That's awesome. I hope that you get something out of it, Mary. It was fun. We do have a half hour. If you have any questions, let's talk about them. I'm going to just hang out and let's see, maybe work on another one of these images just kind of silently, and you can work along. We do have another example in the Dropbox folder. So pop over into Dropbox and grab photo 5. This also came from Pexels. It's a stock photo. So I'm just going to drag it into Photoshop. Oh, you see it made a new layer with our masks. That's actually cool. That was a happy accident, huh? I didn't even mean to do that. You didn't even see it. Oh, because I switched to just me. I'm going to switch back to my desktop so you can see what just happened. It was pretty cool. Let's go to the desktop. So I dragged this other stock photo into Photoshop and it created itself a new layer for me, but it left our masked out girl disintegrating on top of this other background, which was pretty cool. Didn't mean to do that. It just happened. What I was actually intending to do was to take this photo number 5, and drag it to the top here of Photoshop. If you drag it into the document here, it creates a layer. If you drag it up to the top, it should open as a new tab, I think. Or maybe I'm lying. All right. Let's cancel that, and I will just right-click on it, or I'll just double-click on it, because that's easier. All right. So here we are. We've got a photo from Pexels. It's pretty cool. We got our dude here, and we're going to just follow the same process, but I'm going to do it faster. Right. So first thing I'm going to do is make a copy by dragging my layer there. Then I'm going to rename this copy to, I'm going to name it to BG. BG. Then I'm going to use my lasso tool. I'm going to select this guy. And I'm going to hit Shift Delete to delete him. I'm going to set these fill contents here to content aware. And Photoshop is going to make the decision for me about what it replaces that with. We could get fancy about it and try to clean it up more than this, but for this particular effect, we don't really have to. That's good enough. I just don't want to leave a big blank space. Right, he's still going to be there in the photo. He's just going to be disintegrating a little bit, so this doesn't have to be completely perfect, but you could get away with it. All right. Now that's our background. Now I'm going to take this guy and we're going to make another copy of the background. I'm going to drag it on top so we get our guy back, and we're going to rename this. We're going to call this layer dude. Now we're going to try and select our dude out from the background. So we want just the dude without the background. So I'm going to hit the W key. The W key is for the magic wand selection brush, which is a tool that you could use to just come in here and like paint him, which might be fast. So you could just kind of use the magic wand and paint your selection. But it's even faster though if you just hit W to select this tool and then hit select subject. Then Adobe can do its thing, and it usually does a better job than I would faster. Not in this case, though, it seems. So there's lots of tools here for selections, and every image is different, so you use the one that works the best. In this case, the quick selection tool was actually working better than the automatic selection tool, so I just went back to it. So I'm just kind of dragging along him, selecting him as best I can, roughly. I could zoom in and do this well, but I'll wait on that because we have this select and mask up here to refine our selection, which it's actually pretty okay, that selection. I'm just going to use this refine brush here to paint around his foot because his foot looks weird. That doesn't look right. And that, well, it kind of masked out his whole foot. It wasn't really what I was going for. So I'm going to zoom into that bit here, and I'm going to use this brush, and I'm just going to brush his foot back. I'm going to paint his foot in. Cool. Now I'm going to paint around his heel. Cool. And I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger because I did the outline. And I'm just going to fill in his foot. My brush smaller. Okay. Then I'm going to zoom out and just make sure the rest of it looks okay. This looks bad up by his arm. So let's use our refine brush, which sometimes just does all the hard work for us, and paint along his arm there. And it's doing a good job of separating him there from the little white edge of the background that was poorly cut out. Just refines our selection, just like it says it does. And then his little knee pit here. So these are common areas that need to be touched up, so no big deal. And then, again, we want to output this to a... let's output it to a layer mask. Right? Cool. And then we hit OK. So what we've got is... I'm going to turn off the background. And then I'm going to turn off the dude. And what we've got is our background and our dude. And our dude is separated on this layer from his background by a mask. Right? So we have our dude and our background completely separate. Now we need one more dude, and we need to make him do the liquefy thing. So I'm going to take this background, our original layer, drag it to new. And I'm going to call this... splatter. And then I'm going to make sure that the little eye is on so we can see it. And I'm going to drag this layer to the top for right now, just because it's the one I'm working on. So I want to see exactly what's going on there. Now we want to go to the liquefy tool, which I remember from last time is in filter and then liquefy. Filter liquefy is a tool that we can use to warp stuff around. And I'm going to use a smaller brush because he's a smaller guy here, and we're gonna just feather him out and make him madness. I'm trying to get more of like him because some of what I'm coloring is just blackness, so I don't want to reveal just blackness. I want to reveal the color and texture of him and his clothes, right? Right, so here we go. It looks like he's warping through a portal to another dimension. Perfect. That's exactly where we want him to be. Maybe we want this to go a little further. I'm not sure how far out we want the effect to go. But check out what this tool does. Liquefy, it's like it's just bending the sheet metal. It's amazing. And this is just one of the options inside. It's just the default one. You can really get nutty with it. It's pretty fun. All right. So he's pretty well feathered out. It looks like he's flying in a Victorian black, is it Victorian? A big black flowy dress or something now. I don't know. We're going to hit OK to apply that change. And now we have our splatter layer. Now that we've created our splatter layer, which on its own looks pretty cool, I might actually use this as an effect to make a portal to another dimension kind of image. I'm going to drag this layer under the dude. So now we have the dude and we have the splatter. And now on the splatter layer, remember, we want to create a mask because I want to mask out of this portal to the other dimension. So I'm going to hit this little button that looks like the Japanese flag, and that creates a white mask. But we want to hide things. Remember, white reveals things and black conceals things. So this time I'm going to use G. I'm going to hit the G key on my keyboard to bring up this fill, the paint bucket tool, and then I'm just going to fill this with black. I really just want to show you that it doesn't matter how you get the black there. As long as you fill the mask with black, whatever the mask is on is going to be hidden. So now we've got our hidden splatter layer and our dude. And now we come to the fun part where we get to do our splatteries. So let's grab that third brush we thought was cooler, I think. And we'll make it small. And I'm going to zoom in on him more. Great. So now we're going to start, let's start cutting into our dude. Select the dude layer and select the mask. And then we're going to paint, let's see, we want to hide the dude. So we're going to paint black around the edges of our dude with our spatter brush. This brush is too big, I think, for... And he's starting to disintegrate, and I'm just changing with the bracket key in between my little dots here. I'm changing the size of the brush, and then I'm going to change the brush itself. To that first one, I'm just mixing them up. And I want to do it enough so that some of him actually disappears, you know. And we want it to look like he's really disintegrating as he moves. And notice he's moving to the right, so I'm doing this on his left side. And our last image was the other way around. Just go with the movement, obviously. So I'm just taking this third brush. It seems the best for this effect again. And I made it relatively small. And I'm just painting along the edges of him. And he's starting to disappear, right? And I don't have to get rid of his whole arm. I don't want to get rid of his face at all. I think that's kind of cool about this one. So let's see. I mean, his eyes aren't open, but it's neat that we're not cutting into his head. All right, so now we have this dude kind of disintegrating. And what we want to do is basically the opposite on the layer below. On our splatter layer, we have this black mask on our splatter layer, right? And you're right, his right hand is missing. I just noticed that too. His right hand is missing. Let's take a look at why his right hand is missing. Let's take a look at our dude mask. And let's zoom in here. And let's see if we can paint his hand back with just, I'm going to switch to a normal brush. Thank you for noticing that. And let's just paint his hand back in, right? Because we're working on a mask. So that was excellent that you saw. So I can just come back here and I'm just painting white to reveal his hand back. And I can get in here to the pixel layer. See, if I zoom in super, super far, you can actually see the individual pixels. So we can paint this in perfectly. I wouldn't try it with a mouse, but with a pressure sensitive tablet, it's pretty sweet. Just saying. So we got his fingers here. Cool. So now we fixed his hand. Thank you very much. Now let's go back to our spatter layer and let's go back to our spatter brush. Not the Mega Pack. The Mega Pack is just something I installed. You can install tons and tons of free Photoshop brushes. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. But these are just, we're working with the ones that came with Photoshop. So on our spatter layer, make sure we're working on our mask. So make sure that the mask thumbnail is selected. And we want to reveal now that spatter. So we're going to take our spattery brush with some white. And we're going to reveal that spatter. And now he's breaking apart off into the void. And we can't go as far as we did in the last image because I didn't liquefy him out much farther than this. And there wasn't really much color in him to begin with. But there's some blue in there. And it doesn't need color. I mean, the effect is still happening. This is still dope. So that's what we've got. Now we've got our dude. Oh, I guess I did paint it out a little bit further. Let's see how far we can go. Oh, I did. So I made my brush big. I'll make my brush small. We're just doing a bunch of explosies. That's right, explosies. Bam. Big, small, and just feather it in until it looks the way you want. Remember, all of this is reversible, not only because we're working on layers here, but because we're working on masks on top of those layers. So any mistake or anything that you want to change is easily done by just painting black and white on these masks. They're super, super, super powerful. it was really easy for me to bring that guy's hand back, even though in a much earlier step during the selection, I didn't notice that it wasn't selected. So masks are cool. Masks are very useful to do all these sorts of effects. And that's that. So we've done our dispersion effect. So